Hello and welcome to the Heart of Hope podcast. I'm joined by Ashley Manuel, who is a mother of somebody on the autism spectrum, and she's also an author of the book I Hate Autism and Not My Child. So I thought it was a really interesting book to get stuck into and to discuss. So first of all, welcome Ashley. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ah, lovely. So I just thought to start off, we could talk to you a bit about your journey, like how you kind of started on this journey of understanding autism and that whole process, and then what kind of got you started with the book. So what was it like when you first found out about autism for your child? Like how did that happen?
He's actually my baby, so I have
Oh,
four
wow.
children. Yep, I
Four.
have
Oh my
four.
goodness.
So I have three girls, and then he was my little luck of the Irish baby born on St. Patrick's Day.
Wow.
I thought I was a pro. Like I had this by the time you get to number four, you're like, got
I
this,
got this. Yeah.
nothing could shake me. Well, I was shaken.
Yeah.
I started noticing just a little regression in milestones. I thought actually he was losing his hearing. He didn't, he stopped responding to noises and didn't look at when I called him by his name.
Mm,
So, of course, I went to Dr. Google, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone because it just
yeah.
scares you. And YouTube and everything I put into the search was autism, autism.
Yeah.
So we started here in the United States. It's called early intervention. It's
Mm.
therapy. And about 2 weeks in, the teacher said, I think you need to go to a developmental specialist. And I just kind of looked at her and I said, autism? And she goes, well, I can't. And I knew in my mommy heart, uh, you know, but I didn't know, what does this even mean? I was
Yeah.
so blindsided. And I hear moms and or parents talk a lot like it's just kind of like you're navigating this path and this journey all on your own, and it's very scary.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I mean, my experience was slightly different. So my daughter, she was my first ever child, so brand new to parenting, and she would be what people would class as high functioning. So she was hitting most milestones, but she was a little bit delayed with the walking, and bit delayed with the talking. But it wasn't a huge delay. Like there wasn't evident signs where it was like, okay, there's something not quite right. But then when she turned 5, she started to do things like trying to abscond, like run off and things like that. And I was like, okay, there's something not. That's when I started to pick up. Hang on, there's something not quite right here. There's something going on. And it actually took 2 years for diagnosis, so she didn't get diagnosed till she was 7.
Wow.
Whereas with my little boy, very similar to your story of regression, he was starting to talk around 2, like babble, and then he just stopped talking. It regressed right back. So he's non-verbal at the moment. So it's just amazing the differences. There's so many different parts of the spectrum that you like you can say once you met one person with autism, it's just one person. They're so different. So it is trying to navigate this journey, especially with there being such a wide spectrum. Sometimes you don't know what path to take, where to turn.
They become our tour guides, actually. I say that all the time,
Yeah.
is he is the captain of this ship. I'm just kind of like, okay, now we're here. Okay. And it can change so fast. I mean, with different things that he does now. I mean, my son does speak a few words. He's going to be 8 in March. But
Right. Wow.
for the most part, I mean, there isn't conversation.
Yeah.
He's not going to, and like you said, see, we call it elopement when they run off, when they flee.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That
Um,
that actually makes sense as well. Elopement. Yeah. Yeah.
and that has gotten better for us, but now we deal with other things. And so it's just this wave that you kind of got to ride and just let them be the tour guide of it.
Yeah. And sometimes when people ask how it is, and it sounds like you try not to be negative with it, but it can be like a little bit of a tick box, you know, you've dealt with that challenge, you've ticked that box, you get to the next one, you tick that box, but then something that used to work doesn't work anymore. So then you're trying to figure out a new way to handle it. So it always feels like a never ending ream of tick boxes that you're constantly
Never.
trying to tick. Yeah.
Yeah. It comes up
Yeah.
with this, Nicholas didn't speak for 6 years, and now his favorite words are potty words, swear words. So
Okay.
now we're dealing with that. And
Oh,
part of me as a mom, I'm like, he's speaking, that's a word. And the
yeah,
other part, I'm like, oh, but that's not a good word.
that's not a
So
good word.
that's where we are. That's where we're right now.
Oh, bless you. And that it's like that mixed bag, isn't it? Like you say, you want to be like, yes, he's speaking, but yeah, you can imagine like walking, picking him up from school and he's saying these,
Oh
dirty
yeah.
words and people are looking like,
Oh yeah. I always say, like, I want him to like have a shirt or something that it's like, I have autism. And it sounds so bad. It sounds so bad. But I feel like people give grace to people when they know they have special needs. But there's no face to autism.
Absolutely. And that was
There's
something really
no,
used to get to me. People used to say, well, she doesn't look autistic. Like, if I would
yes.
mention that my daughter's, she don't look it, I'm thinking, doesn't have a
What?
look. Like, where's
She
that
doesn't
coming
have a look.
from?
And sometimes, honestly, if I'm being honest, I wish it did.
Yeah.
I wish I do, because there's just this understanding or this grace when someone's struggling or has a disability or has special needs, to where if they just look like, just an
Yeah.
ordinary child, a typical child, it's like, why are they acting like that? Oh, they must be naughty. Oh, they must be misbehaving.
Yeah. I mean, being a mum with like children on the autism spectrum on both ends, like we used to say Asperger's for high functioning children and classic for the children that have more challenges. And then now we just say autism because there were people who said we don't like the fact that it's differentiated, but actually having a child on both ends, I think for the children who are more high functioning, they don't get as much of that grace or understanding because they seem to cope better. But it's not that they cope better, they mask better, they hide that they're struggling better.
Yeah.
So actually, I prefer there to be a differentiation, but that's because I've got one on both ends of the spectrum. And I think it's evident for my little boy. So people, as soon as they see him, they see the autism. Straight away, there's compassion. Straight away, there's understanding. So
Yeah.
it is interesting, isn't it? I could talk about autism all day, to be
Me
honest.
too. I know, and that's why I wrote the book, because it's a connection
Mm,
to other mommies and daddies. I might get emotional out there, but it's the grace I needed,
yeah.
when I felt I didn't have any. Um, when I felt, and like you said before, you can explain it all day,
Mm.
but unless you've walked a mile, I won't even say a mile, unless you've walked 5 steps in our
Yeah. Five
shoes,
steps.
you can't understand. And that goes for a lot of things in life. If you haven't walked through it, you don't know the depths that it goes
Yeah.
to. And I talk so much to other parents raising children with special needs who are like, I'm kind of sick of talking about it to people who don't understand. I don't want to
Mm.
explain more. I'm tired and I'm trying to just deal with what I have to deal with on a daily.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's why it's isolating. That's why we isolate. That's why we don't do a lot of things.
Absolutely. I mean, when I saw the title of your book, I Hate Autism, Not My Child, I just thought, I love that. It's just
Mhm.
such a brave statement because we want to love our children with everything. And although autism is a part of that, there are times when the autism really takes over and you just think, oh, I just want to love on my child, but this autism's getting in the way,
Yeah. I
especially at the
think
moment
of
for
it
me. Like,
as
yeah.
I think of it as too. When I knew the title was going to be um, a tough pill to
Mm,
swallow, especially for the autism community.
yeah.
They identify a lot with autism. It's part of their identity. And if you read the book, it's chapter 2 in the book.
Mm,
It's not that I hate any part of my son.
yeah.
Um, I think coming from a parent standpoint, a mommy, I would take anything away from any of my children that made life more difficult.
Yeah,
You know, my 10-year-old struggles in reading. If I could snap my fingers and take that away,
yeah.
I would. And
I love that.
autism for my son, at least, makes life very difficult, and it will for the rest of his life.
And I
That's
think that's
just
the
where,
key is you can see the beauty in it. Like that's what I say a lot of the time is I want to see the joy. Like I can see the joy. So my little one gets so much out of stimming and sensory play, and you just see this beautiful spark in his eyes. Like you see him light up, and I just think that part I love because I know he's like fully just loving his life, you know. But then when he can't tell me that he's in pain or that he is struggling or he's frustrated, that I can't stand because I think I just want to help him. I just want to be able to take the pain away if he's in pain or know when he's unwell, but I can't. I don't know. So it's all a guessing game, you know. So I think it's kind of being able to balance out, you know, there is joy in it, and then it's knowing how to handle the challenges as they come, and also feel our feelings because we're bound to have feelings about what we're experiencing, trying to be the best parents we can be as well.
and I think about, what about when I'm not here?
Mm,
As I age, or when I'm, who's going to take care of him? Who's going to be his advocate? Who's going
yeah.
to um, know, we as moms, we've learned they don't need words with us. We know
Mm.
what they most of the time. We know, we get that intuition. But what happens one day when I'm not here, and that's the things we don't talk about. That's the things we talk about only with our partners, or when we're under the covers at night, or that, goes through our minds until we fall asleep. And
Yeah.
that's why, I wrote the book, because it's okay. It's okay as a mom and a caregiver or a dad to feel this part of you that doesn't like every single thing about your child's disability. You're not wrong. You're not a bad mom or a bad dad. It's tough, and it's okay to say it, and it's okay to feel it.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think that's why autism mums get on so well in connecting groups and in the community because they can just express how they're feeling and what they're trying to do to support their child, get ideas from other mums, and have no judgment.
Yeah.
There's no judgment there because everyone is going through a similar thing or the same thing. And I think that's why it's so important to try to find these groups because otherwise it can be so easy to shut yourself in and just be kind of in your own on your own ship trying to follow the like you say follow your child as a guide but then
Yeah.
never kind of taking a break and stopping because you're always kind of fighting the fires and trying to handle things on your own.
Hmm. Especially if your child doesn't sleep, then you don't even get the. That I had to make that a whole chapter in the book on just sleep alone, because Nikki could be up for days before we found what's going to help him. But um, functioning as a mom with a child with special needs, all of our needs go to the background. We become these zombies that are just, to fulfill the needs of our children. And it's tough. It's a tough world. And that's, I want
Yeah.
I want moms not to feel alone. I felt so alone
Mm,
um, during his diagnosis, and I carried it. And I was brave, and I put on this brave face, and
yeah.
oh, everything's wonderful, and I just love my son, and he's so cool, and he is,
Yeah.
right?
Of course,
This
yeah.
the coolest little dude I know, but um, I'm not super mom, and I'm not always brave, and I'm hurting,
Yeah.
and struggling, and a lot of us are depressed and sleep deprived and hungry, and we're eating, like, I remember, my husband, I picked up a fruit snack or something the other day. He was like, "You're not going to eat that, are you?" I was like, "I'm starving." you know, out of like, whatever. But yeah. I just don't want other moms to, if I can help one mom's heart out there by reading this book.
Mm.
Um, I wrote a personal note to myself that um, my therapist actually said, write a note to yourself about when you were going through his diagnosis period. If you could say one thing now that you're out of it, what would you
Yeah.
say to that woman? And that was probably the hardest thing I ever wrote because I felt bad for her.
Yeah, but I think going through that process can be so tough, especially if it's like prolonged waiting lists and you're trying to support whilst you're waiting. And then for me in particular, for my daughter, she was so, well, she's so high functioning, although behaviours are getting more challenging as she gets older. Like, we got to this assessment and this woman came up to her and she was like, "Oh, hello. Oh, I love this building. I love your carpets. They're so colourful. They're really nice." And I was just stood there thinking, they're not going to know. Like, look at her gabbing away, you know what I mean? And we're walking and she's talking. And I'm thinking, oh, they're not going to know. And I just felt like I've got to prove that this is what it is, you know. Um, and so they spoke to her and then she left the room and they spoke to me, and by the end of it I was like, I've got videos of this, you know, because she seemed to be so like fine that I thought I don't want them to think I'm making up, because I'm not, you know, I've got these videos. And they said to me, we knew within 5 minutes, it's okay. Because they said to me she used a social strategy. So she said the sentence to that lady, but then a different woman came into the room as we were talking, and she's the exact same social sentence for that woman, and that was one of the things they picked up on. And I was just like, oh, because you just don't know what to expect, and it can be quite stressful.
Yes. And it
Yeah.
actually wrote that in the book where I just wanted a word.
Mm,
Diagnose day, actually, a lot of people would think that would be like the heartbreak day, the depression, the sadness. No, it was
mm,
so freeing that
yeah.
someone saw my child and listened to me and said, "Yeah, you're right. You're not crazy. He's sick. It's okay." You know, I wanted a word.
Yeah.
You know, I had so many people in my life that would say, "Oh, he's fine. He's a boy. He's the baby, blah, blah, blah." You know, I said,
Mm.
"Oh, no."
And there's a lot of people who are torn about the idea of a label, about, well, it's just a label, I don't want to label my child. And to a certain extent you understand that, because there can be a lot of judgment and misconception around autism. But actually, if that diagnosis means that that child gets access to support earlier on and can get strategies in place to help them thrive, then it's worth it.
Oh, do it, do it, do it. I
Do
say
it,
it
do it.
to every mom out there. It just opens doors. That's all it does. You walk out of there with the same baby you walked in there with. It doesn't
Yeah,
change them. It doesn't mean anything. It just means, hey, my child now gets access, like you said. It just opens doors for them, and I try to advocate so much. Just do it.
absolutely. I
And if you
agree.
need help, reach out. I'll help you. It's a lot of paperwork and it's time consuming, but it's it's given him so many legs to stand on too, especially when you start navigating your way through the school system
Yeah,
and doctor visits and such like that.
yeah, absolutely. And I think like you just mentioning now, the doctor's visit and the school, like there's so much involvement by different professionals, different things you have to put in place, like it can feel quite overwhelming. I've met a few different autism mums, and there's some ladies who've got 4 children on the spectrum, there's some who have 6 children on the spectrum, and I think, wow, like I feel like I'm juggling a lot with two, and they have different needs, different professionals, daily routine, respond to different things. So I'm currently creating an app to help support all that, to kind of streamline all that into one accessible hub. So hopefully that'll be ready in the near future. But there's just such a call for it. There's such a call for parents to get more support at home rather than wait till the next speech and language appointment, wait till the next occupational therapy appointment, and then you're offloading at these appointments and then hoping to get support, but then you have to wait till the next and the next.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I say find find your tribe. It's also a chapter in the book. Find people who will rally around you, listen to you, support you, um, and just be there for you. It's amazing. Connect with one other mom that even if you guys can't get together, even if your schedules are too busy, just the
Mm,
while to say, I'm going through this. We don't usually want tips or tricks or what
yeah.
worked for you, because it probably won't work for ours. We just want someone who says, I get it and it's tough and I'm here. What can I do?
Yeah, because I think being able to just say, this is how it feels at the moment for me, and have somebody completely understand, is on the same wavelength, can just be there and listen, means so much. And I think it's great when people do ask, what's it like, because they want to understand. But sometimes if they haven't experienced it, whether the people realize or not, it can come off quite dismissive if they don't understand your journey. So it can be challenging because part of you wants to help everyone around you understand, but part of you knows deep down the only ones that understand are the ones who go through it with in the same journey as me. So, but yeah, find your people. Like that's the best way to do it. Excellent. So, are there any other plans? Like I know you started journaling with this book. I think it's fantastic. Are there plans to maybe write another book or do any other creative things?
So after I wrote the book, I got a lot of feedback on my husband's point of view. And it's
Fun.
my husband and I obviously have different ways we parent Nicholas. We kind of like, we balance each other. I more am apt to baby him and do everything for him and just do it, where my husband
Mm,
will say, "Heck, he's got it. He's, and I need that. I need that. They're
yeah.
the things I would just do as simple as brushing his teeth. I just would brush him in the bath and get it done. Where my husband will step in and say, let's teach him how to brush his teeth.
Yeah.
Brushes his teeth independently. It took a year, 6 months to a year, but now he does it. And even writing this book, I didn't let my husband in on a lot of the things until it was done, and then he read,
Yeah.
and his perspective on Nicholas's diagnosis and raising a child with special needs, I think could help a lot of other dads out there. Mine's kind of geared towards the mamas and our hearts. Um,
Mm,
but I want to hear his point of view. He doesn't speak a lot on the hard stuff or what he goes through on the inside. He's kind of,
yeah.
my rock, and he stays steady and he lets me freak out. He's like, it's going to be okay. But I know there's got to be so many things that only other dads would. So I told him I'd help him write it and I would be the
Amazing.
author, but it would be his point of view. And so, yeah, that's my next goal when I get
I
some
love that.
free time.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, it's not easy to find that free time.
all that
Oh, but
free.
that's fantastic. Yeah. No, I love that because I think, you know, we're quite open to talking about things, women, but men tend to keep it in. So I think it's really good that there's going to be that perspective. Because you hear a lot about, women posting hashtag autism mum, I'm an autism mum, and posting and talking about their journeys, but you don't hear much from a dad's perspective. So I think that is really brilliant, really
Yeah,
exciting.
give
Oh,
him a
watch this space.
voice.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. I mean, I was wondering what you thought because you were talking about your different parenting styles. And I tend to say this, and I'm not sure what people think of it, but I tend to go, my child has autism, but that's not an excuse. So I tend to find that some parents who, their child will do something and it's not really very nice to another child, and they'll go, "Oh well, the thing is, they've got autism," and I'm like, "Yeah, but that's not an excuse, right?"
Yep.
So an example I've got is I took my daughter to a soft play, and when she was younger, she would just go to like the baby area, the baby ball pit. She didn't want to go on the older stuff, even though she was at the right age for it. And this one day, I was so excited. She starts to walk towards the older kids climbing. I'm thinking, oh yes, it's happening. And she's climbing up on it. And this girl comes up from behind, grabs her by the scruff of the t-shirt and flings her off. And I was like, so you can imagine, I was so frustrated because it was like a milestone and she just got in the way. And I was saying to the people working there, who's working here? And you can imagine. So anyway, I was like, well, where's this daughter's, where's this child's mum? I want to speak to her, and I want an apology. I wanted to apologise because that is not right. And the mother was like, well, she's got autism. And I was like, okay, my daughter has autism, but that's no excuse. Like, she needs to learn it's not right to treat people that way. So please get her to say sorry. And she's like, say sorry. Sorry. But I just think, no, you still need to teach them that it's not right to do that to the people. So I think it is important to recognise the autism and have that compassion, but at the same time, like, oh, it's all right. You can just grab somebody by the scruff of the neck. You got autism. It's all good.
Nope. Tough
No.
love. It took time to get there. And it was my husband who was like, for Nikki, it wasn't really his behavior. It was independence. And
Mm.
hey, he has autism. He could still brush his teeth. It's
Yeah.
okay with autism. He can learn to bathe himself and wash himself. And I was like, you know what? It did click. I was like, you're right. He can.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
with, the scope of what I know he's able to do, I'm more apt now to independence, and at some point we got to learn it. We can't.
Yeah. I think, like, for me, the way I look at it is the goal is there and it's achievable. It's just breaking it down into smaller steps and giving the time. So it might take longer, but it's still achievable. They can still do it. And it's giving them that, like you say, that grace and that compassion and supporting them on the journey. And then when they achieve it, it'll feel more like of an achievement because we've been there through that,
Yeah.
instead of putting the pressure on them to get it done when everyone else is doing it. Oh, amazing. So, have you got anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
No, I think just to I'll show you guys the book in case you haven't seen
Oh,
it.
yes,
So
please. Oh, I
this is
love that picture.
me and the noodle. That's what I call him. I call him Nikki Noodle because I'm
I love
Italian.
that.
Loves my noodles. So as
I'm
you
glad I'm
know,
not the only one who does nicknames. Well, I wouldn't call it a
oh,
nickname. I call my daughter the curly whirly girly because she has
oh
ringlety hair. So I'm like, you're my curly whirly girly.
I know all my names, and so yeah, and it's available on Amazon, so you can purchase it on there. And I hope you like it. I hope it hits a part of your heart, and you come back to those words anytime you need it.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, so I'll be making this podcast available in the digital newsletter and it'll have a link to your book so
Okay.
people can access it directly. So that's excellent. And just curiously, this has just popped into my head and I tend to do
Yeah.
this. Yeah. How are like the siblings around the autism? Like how was that?
That you want to know how to treat someone with autism, watch their siblings. They
Mm,
are that chapter. I have a whole chapter on siblings, and I will take my last breath in this world with ease because of my girls,
wow.
because they guard him like a jewel. I mean, like an armed guard. They play with him and they interact and they get into his world and they spin and they flap and they
I
giggle
love
and
that.
they run and it's just Nikki. This is their life. And I can see the difference. I can see the
Yeah.
things we can't do and stuff, and they're a little held back, but they don't.
Wow.
What?
Amazing. I love
Yeah,
that. That's so good.
I know.
I love that. Oh.
Best
Oh,
human
thank
being.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much
No,
for coming today. I think it's so invaluable to hear from your perspective. And I just think it's so true that as mums, we can struggle to really open up and kind of lay our hearts bare about the struggles.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I'm sure lots of people are going to get a huge amount from your wonderful book and excited for the next book, taking on your husband's perspective. Because again, I think that is so important. We don't hear
Yeah.
much from autism dads, so
Yeah.
very excited for that. And thank you for coming, and I hope you
Thank
enjoyed.
you. Thank you for having me. Anytime you want to talk, we'll talk.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. We're totally going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good day.